There's been a lot of we'll call it noise around this 1% down mortgage that Rocket Mortgage just launched. And to your point, many lenders have been doing this. It's not just a Rocket Mortgage thing, but that has brought up, Steve, a lot of questions. Is this good? Is this truly a good thing for the consumer? Is it a bad thing? So I wanted to kind of pick your brain from a lender's perspective, from a mortgage guy's perspective. What are maybe some of the pros and cons? We'll start from your perspective, and then I'll get your advice from the borrower or the buyer's perspective on, do you think that this helps in the marketplace?
Sure. So, I mean, really, there's in my if you qualify, there is zero con, right?
Mm,
And so, if there was a con, right? So, in all the lender, and there's several lenders that are doing this now. They're calling it 1% down, and what they'll do is there's a cap, right? So it's 2% up to a certain dollar amount, whether it be $4,000 or $6,000. So that would be 2% down or 2% down payment assistance up to a $200,000 home, or 2% up to a $300,000. Depends on which lender you're working with. And this is entirely subsidized by the lender on conventional loans. So these lenders are giving you, it's just a super simple lender credit. And
mm,
there's, like, and when you compare it to like traditional, like, so they're calling it down payment assistance, right? Which normally down payment assistance, there's a, like it, like it's not, there's no real free money, right? And so with
right.
down payment assistance, there's either, a 10-year period where you have like what we call a silent second mortgage, where there's like a lien on the back end of your house. If you try to refinance or sell, you pay it back. Some of them stay on there for the life of the loan. Some of them you make payments, some of them you don't. All kinds of different things. This is literally like a lender credit for up to 4,000 or 6,000 or whatever percentage it is, right? For that amount with no strings attached, which is,
Wow.
there's no such thing as free money other than this, right? And then there are some flaws in it, that because people always find a flaw, and I respect that, and that's fine. And the drag or the downside of this is this is designed for people that make up to 80% of the area median income, right? So depending on where you're located, and you can Google, conventional loan area median income, we call it AMI. And so, like in Oakland County, where we work out of, the area median income here is like $90,000, $90,800. So if you make $72,000 or less, you qualify for these products. And so it doesn't, and that's the interesting part. And they're very open about this. Is there, you don't have to use all of the income that somebody makes. So if somebody just has
Mm,
a base salary of 70,000, but maybe has 80,000 in commissions, we don't have to use the commission income. We don't have to use both borrowers' income. So there's some ways that you can manipulate that. And yes, it does limit who gets the money. They're not giving people $4,000 to buy $1 million home, and that's not going to make or break that $1 million home purchase. But for $200,000, that $200,000 buyer range, which is so competitive right now because home prices are so high. So some of these entry level markets, that can really make or break somebody, whether it's covering some of their, maybe they have the 3%, right, to put down,
sure.
but this gives them some extra money to cover some closing costs. It gives them some extra money to buy some new things or help them with moving expenses, or maybe it helps with some appraisal gap or appraisal guarantee coverage. There's all kinds of different things you can do to money that has no strings attached, other than you have to make less than 80% of the area median income. And I should mention this too, you have to have a 97% loan to value, right? So if you want to put down 5%, or you want to put down 10%, or you want to put down 20%, you can't use this product. You have to borrow at least 97% of the value of the house, right?
Got it. Are
Um,
there loan limits to this?
yes and no, right? So there's not a loan size limit to this, but if you're making 72 grand a year, you're not getting a
Okay.
$500,000 loan, you
Got
know?
it. So
So
let's let,
like
go ahead.
300 is about the max, and,
Okay.
and and these things change. Like if you're in San Diego, California, it's a whole different number. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it could be a totally different number, totally different loan amount, just because they're adjusted by county.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess to your point, this is a great thing. I mean, if you look at it, because of the income piece of this, to qualify, in my head, this only helps things. I don't know why there would be a downside and why maybe there has been some backlash in the market around this new mortgage option, because it's a great thing. And to your point, it's for the person who's putting 3% down on a conventional mortgage and they're getting 2% of that essentially back as a lender credit, correct?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's some rumblings of like, oh, this is how, like, what caused the how, like, look,
Right.
$4,000,
Right.
$4,000 down payment assist isn't going to make or break the housing market. If everybody got it, it's not going to
Yeah.
make a difference. The last time the housing market crashed was because when we were doing zero down loans, you were doing a first loan for 80% at 6.5% or whatever it was, and you're doing a second mortgage for 20% at 9%. And you're doing it with stated income. They didn't have to have reserves, and they could be working, like the guidelines.
It had more to do with the payment adjusting than what they were putting down. So that argument
Exactly.
doesn't even play, because yeah, you're right. Like when we were writing those mortgages, two things were happening. Either A, it was an adjustable rate mortgage and the person's payment doubled overnight in their 3-year adjustable period. They didn't know that was going to happen. So that crushed people's ability to make their monthly payments. And then B, it was a negative amortization product where they were tacking on principal, owing more on their house every single month without knowing that. They took a mortgage out for 200,000, woke up in 3 years. It's like, well, you actually owe 275. What? How do I? Because you weren't even covering the interest, Bob. Well, no one told me that. That had nothing to do with down payment. So if that's the pushback, and I think you're exactly right, this is a phenomenal thing. My question is, can a buyer use the credit to buy down a rate in this product? Can they use the credit for that?
Yeah, it's simply so if you have all the money, right? So if you're buying a $200,000 house, let's say on average you need 12 grand for closing, right?
Okay.
So closing costs, setting
Yeah.
up your escrow account, your 3%, like all your stuff, you need 13 grand at closing. So this is just simply reducing that by $4,000, right?
It's
So
amazing.
I did the first one of these that I did. I actually used like 2,700. We had the down payment, but we were running into some debt to income ratio issues, and so we paid off a credit card with we paid off a credit card at closing by having that extra cash, which dropped money out of their payment. It wasn't the debt wasn't super tight for them as a household, but for that one borrower it was. So we had to kind of squeeze that borrower into this 97% program because they were a first time home buyer and their significant other wasn't. So to get them better pricing on the loan, we called them a first time home buyer, left her off the loan. And then, I mean, there's a bunch of back and forth, but we utilized some of that money to pay off a credit card for them. And it was just a credit card that they would have had if they would have closed, but instead we got some free money. They used $1,300 to help them at closing and $2,700 to pay off a credit card, and
It's
made the debt
phenomenal.
ratios work and allowed them to take advantage of all the benefits that come with some of these programs. Because not to go super deep into the weeds, right, but on these 97% loan to value loans, which are pretty common right now, there's a couple things you keep in mind. Like, well, maybe people should put down more money, and I get it. That's fine. Like, I put down more on my house and you did the same. But when you look at the numbers, and when you're a first time buyer, like I'm not a first time buyer, nor are you, but when you're a first time home buyer, you say, okay, I have 5 grand here, or I can put it down on my house. And the difference is $30 a month, right? So
Right.
if I'm dividing my 500, right, to simplify the math, by 30, like it's going to take me years and years to break even on that money. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and buried my 5 grand, you got to call Steve and pay about 5 grand to get it back. Or
Yeah.
you can keep it in your pocket for $30 a month and subsidize yourself. But so it makes a lot of sense to do these lower down payment loans, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is to qualify for these loans, these 3% down and these first time home buyer deals. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where all those loan level adjustments where you're being charged, with a little bit lower credit score and you've got to pay more points, and for less money down, you're doing all these things. Well, the first time home buyer products that we're talking about that use this free money also, it waives all of your loan level pricing adjustments. So that's why it's so important to get people, why I'm always trying to find a way to split applicants and do different things to make sure we take advantage of these first time buyer products, or under 80% of the area median income, because we can waive a bunch of these extra fees. So it's not that we're trying to get people in by the skin of their teeth. We're just trying to save them as much money as we possibly can.
I told you guys, Steve's the best loan officer in the country. Like all that stuff you just said, all I'm thinking in my head is like, wow, that's just a bunch of Instagram reels that people just need to watch because you just dropped so many nuggets. Like you guys should go
Yeah.
back and rewatch that. So yeah, dude, like I'm just like you continue truly, whether we were recording or not, you continue to impress me with your art because it is an art. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the difference between a top loan officer and then the rest of the mules, the rest of the amateurs. So anyway, I'll
Well,
thank you
then
for
first
that.
time buyers, right? Every $1,000 is such a big deal, Like when you're
Yeah,
buying a house, I mean, those you need every one of those nickels.
it's amazing.